There's a moment nobody talks about, the moment right before your breakthrough. Not the celebration after. Not the success you can see. This moment comes earlier, quieter, stranger. It feels like standing in a doorway that hasn't fully opened yet. The air shifts. Time slows. And something inside you whispers, something's coming, but why hasn't it arrived? You've done everything. The meditations, the visualizations, the scripting, the affirmations. You've aligned your energy. You've raised your vibration. You've done the work. Yet nothing moves. And that silence, that heaviness you feel, it's not failure. It's not resistance. It's not the universe testing you. It's a signal. A subtle one. A signal most people misinterpret. Because right at the point where you feel closest to your new reality, you may be activating the one mechanism that pushes it further away. Not because you're doing anything wrong. Not because you lack belief. But because you're following a concept so common in manifestation culture that nobody questions it anymore. You think you're pulling your future closer. But at the quantum level, you might actually be freezing it in place, never allowing it to collapse into your reality. Why? Because the idea that you must attract your desire sounds empowering. But attraction implies distance. It declares, it's not here yet. It exists somewhere else. I am separate from it. And the quantum field responds instantly. It mirrors your state, your signal, your truth. Not eventually, now. So if your state is lack disguised as hope, that's exactly what you keep recreating. And this is why so many stay stuck in an endless loop of wanting, waiting, and wondering. They visualize and feel good for a while, but then the evidence doesn't show up quickly enough. Doubt creeps in, energy drops, and the cycle begins again. They conclude they need to visualize harder, feel more intensely, or repeat affirmations longer. But all of these actions reinforce the same starting point. I don't have it yet. The more they try, the stronger the vibration of lack becomes. This is not laziness or weakness. It is physics. The field responds not to what you want, but to the frequency you embody. And every effort to attract is a confession that you are still outside of the reality you desire. Think of it like chasing your reflection in a mirror. No matter how fast you run, the image runs with you. Always just out of reach. That's what attraction does at the quantum level. It places your dream on a moving horizon. You can see it. You can imagine touching it, but it never arrives because you've told the field it exists at a distance. Distance, time, and separation are illusions of the classical world. But when you hold them in your mind as real, you collapse them into your lived experience. In other words, the belief that you must attract your desire becomes the very prison that holds it apart from you. And here lies the real paradox. The more spiritually dedicated you are, the more disciplined you become with your practices, the stronger this prison can grow. You are training your nervous system to normalize longing instead of fulfillment. Your rituals, instead of setting you free, become chains that tighten each time you repeat them. This is why so many seekers burn out. They feel they're doing everything right, raising vibrations, following steps, aligning intentions, yet life remains unchanged. They begin to believe manifestation doesn't work, when in fact it works with brutal precision. It's just responding to the signal they don't realize they're sending. Science backs this in ways that are often ignored. The observer effect in quantum physics shows that the act of observation doesn't just record reality. It shapes it. But here's the twist. The quality of the observer matters. If you observe as someone who lacks, you collapse a reality of continued lack. If you observe as someone who already is, you collapse a reality where it's done. The lie of attraction trains you to observe from the wrong identity, the one reaching, asking, hoping. And the field without judgment simply echoes that vibration. This is why Neville Goddard insisted, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He understood that the field doesn't care about your words. It responds to your state. But the true danger is not just in blocking your desires. The true danger is what this misconception does to your sense of self. Each time you act as if your future is separate, you reinforce the belief that you are incomplete. You distort your identity into a seeker instead of a creator. You start to live as a person forever reaching for wholeness, when in reality, the quantum field already contains every version of you that you could ever become. You are not moving toward your desires. Your desires are waiting for you to match them. They exist now as fully as this moment exists. The only difference is whether you step into the state where they are visible. And here's the incomplete puzzle, the part most teachers never reveal. If you're not meant to attract, then what are you meant to do? What's the actual mechanism that turns potential into reality? This is where manifestation and quantum physics finally merge. But to see it clearly, we first have to dismantle the observer trap, the silent force that has been running your manifestation process without your consent. And once you see how it works, you will never look at your desires the same way again. Every scientific revolution begins with a paradox. And in quantum mechanics, the paradox that shook the foundations of reality was simple yet impossible. Particles behaved like waves and waves behaved like particles. Electrons, photons, matter itself refused to obey the old rules. But the real shock was not in the particles. It was in us, the observers. The famous double-slit experiment revealed something so radical that most people still haven't digested. The very act of observing changes the outcome. Watch an electron and it behaves like a particle. Don't watch and it flows like a wave of infinite potential. Observation doesn't just measure reality, it collapses it. Now pause and let that land. Because if the act of observing decides whether something exists as possibility or fact, then the way you observe your own desires is everything. Most people are unconsciously playing the role of the wrong observer. They watch their dreams as outsiders, as people waiting, as petitioners looking up at the sky for approval. And so the field responds, accordingly keeping those dreams in a state of wave potential uncollapsed. Always almost. This is not mysticism. It is the mechanics of reality itself. Your consciousness is not a passive lens. It is the switch that determines what becomes real. Imagine standing before a canvas of pure possibility. Infinite realities shimmer, waiting to be chosen. But instead of picking up the brush, most people stare at the canvas and whisper, I hope the picture appears. They wait, they hope, they attract, but nothing appears because they have not collapsed it. They are observing from the state of separation. And separation, in quantum language, is simply another reality. When you identify as the one who waits, the universe cannot help but confirm your waiting. When you identify as the one who asks, the universe confirms your asking. It is mercilessly precise. This is why the observer effect is not just a laboratory phenomenon. It is the mirror of manifestation itself. Neville Goddard called it the law of assumption. Joe Dispenza calls it becoming the new self. Both are translations of the same principle. The quality of the observer determines the quality of the reality observed. The mind that says I want collapses a world of wanting. The mind that says I am collapses a world of being. Physics and mysticism meet at this razor edge. And yet here is where the trap deepens. Because the observer is not just your conscious thoughts. It is your state. You can repeat affirmations endlessly. I am abundant. I am loved. I am powerful. But if beneath the words you're nervous, system is radiating fear, lack, or doubt, the field listens to the vibration, not the vocabulary. You can spend hours visualizing wealth. But if your body is anchored in scarcity, you collapse scarcity again and again. This is the painful cycle so many seekers live. They know the words but not the frequency. They observe with their lips, not their being. And the quantum field responds faithfully to the state that dominates. Here's the incomplete puzzle piece most miss. Your brain and heart together form a broadcasting system. Coherent brain. Waves aligned with coherent heart rhythms generate a measurable electromagnetic field around your body. This field is not metaphor. It is science. Instruments can record it. And that field is what interfaces with the greater quantum field. When you observe reality with elevated emotion and clear intention, you become a coherent observer. You are no longer a beggar at the door of possibility. You are the key, and the lock recognizes you instantly. But coherence is rare because the mind is addicted to familiar states. Your brain's reticular activating system constantly searches for evidence that matches your past. This is why even when you try to create a new future, you keep seeing the old one. You're not broken. You're consistent. You've been observing life through the lens of memory. And memory only knows how to collapse what has already been. The trap is not that the universe withholds. The trap is that you keep watching from the wrong timeline. So, how do you escape? The first step is brutally honest recognition. You must Stop observing your desires as something separate from you. Every time you look at them with longing, every time you frame them as out there, you are performing the exact experiment that ensures they remain out there. The second step is shifting identity. You must enter the state of the one who already lives it, not as fantasy, but as fact. This is where Neville's wisdom becomes surgical. Assume the state until the state assumes you. Feel it, breathe it, walk in it until your body begins to forget the old timeline and normalize the new one. And here is where physics and spirituality whisper the same truth. Reality is not solid. It is participatory. John Wheeler, the physicist who coined it from bit, suggested the universe is not made of matter, but of choices of information collapsed by observation. That means you are not living in a fixed universe. You are swimming in a responsive field, and every observation is a command. The question is not whether you are manifesting. You always are. The question is, from which state are you observing? This is the essence of the quantum observer trap. To break free, you must upgrade your identity as the observer. You must become the coherent self who sees the wish fulfilled, not the fragmented self who hopes it might come. Because the field doesn't reward hope. It mirrors coherence. And once you begin to observe, as the one who already is, something extraordinary happens. Possibilities that were frozen in wave begin to crystallize around you. Coincidences align, opportunities appear, and reality bends. Not because you attracted them, but because you finally stopped pushing them away. But there is still one layer. Deeper, one that even seasoned manifestors overlook. If the observer is state and the state determines collapse, then what exactly fuels the state? What is the signal you are constantly sending to the field, often without knowing it? That is the missing key. And until you understand it, you'll keep falling back into the same loops, no matter how advanced your techniques. To answer that, we must uncover the truth that your state is not just emotion, not just thought. It is the frequency that commands the quantum. And that's where we turn next. If the observer collapses reality, then the question becomes, what exactly is the observer projecting into the field? This is the point where most people stumble because they believe their desire itself is the signal. They think the picture on their vision board, the sentence in their journal, or the affirmation they repeat every morning is what the universe hears. But the field doesn't respond to your words. It doesn't even respond to your goals. The field responds to your state. And your state is the invisible broadcast shaping every moment of your life. Your state is not just your mood. It is the sum total of your thoughts, your emotions, your body chemistry, and your unconscious patterns. It is the electromagnetic field generated by the dance between your brain and your heart. This field extends beyond your skin, measurable by science, pulsing information into the environment around you. When your state is coherent, when your mind and heart align in clarity and elevated emotion, your field becomes stronger, more ordered, more influential. And when it is incoherent, when fear and doubt scramble your signals, the field reflects chaos right back to you. You are always broadcasting. The only question is, are you broadcasting from lack or from completion? Think of it this way. Every radio station exists simultaneously, but the one you hear depends on the frequency your receiver is tuned to. Life is no different. Your desired reality already exists in the field, vibrating at its unique frequency. You do not attract it by hoping harder. You tune into it by embodying its signal. Wealth has a frequency. Love has a frequency. Healing has a frequency. And when your state matches that frequency, the collapse is instant. The station becomes audible. The reality becomes visible. You don't force it. You don't chase it. You simply become the one who hears the song because you are already tuned in. This is why Neville Goddard said, "You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are." He wasn't speaking in poetry. He was describing quantum mechanics in the language of the soul. To become the wish fulfilled is to shift your state into vibrational alignment with the reality where it is already true. Joe Dispenza translates this into neurobiology. When you marry a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you broadcast a new electromagnetic signature into the field. Your body stops living in the past and starts broadcasting from the future. And as the field organizes around your new signal, life reorganizes with it. But here's the trap that keeps people from entering the state. They try to fake it. They recite affirmations, while their body is still addicted to the chemistry of fear. They visualize abundance while their nervous system is locked in survival. On the surface they say, I am, but underneath they vibrate, I am not. And the field which cannot be deceived reflects the underlying state. Every time. This is why effort when misaligned creates exhaustion instead of manifestation. You cannot think your way into a new reality. You must become the new reality. In your body, in your emotions, in your frequency. Otherwise, you remain tuned to the same old station no matter how loudly you shout new affirmations. So, how do you shift state in a way that sticks? Science offers a doorway through coherence. When the brain and heart enter harmony, when your breath regulates, and when gratitude, love, or inspiration flood your system, your electromagnetic field expands. It becomes ordered. Studies at the HeartMath Institute have shown that heart coherence influences not just your own biology but the environment around you. In those moments of elevated state, you are not just thinking about change, you are broadcasting change into the field. This is why ancient spiritual traditions place so much emphasis on the heart as the throne of creation. They intuited what science now confirms. The heart is a signal generator, and when it aligns with the mind, the broadcast becomes undeniable. But coherence is not achieved by force. You cannot bully yourself into a higher vibration. You must create the conditions where it arises naturally. Breath work, meditation, gratitude, embodiment practices. These are not rituals of attraction. They are tuning forks bringing your scattered frequencies into harmony. When used not as desperate tools but as sacred practices, they shift you into the state where the wish is already fulfilled. And, in that state, the field cannot help but collapse accordingly. It has no choice. It always mirrors coherence. Now, here's the incomplete puzzle that pulls us deeper. If your state is the signal, then why does it feel so hard to stay in the elevated states long enough to see change? Why do people have glimpses of coherence only to fall back into old patterns of lack and fear? The answer is not willpower. It's not discipline. It's something far more cunning. The mind itself, wired for survival, constantly drags you back to the familiar. Your state may shift for a moment, but unless you rewire the observer behind it, your nervous system will collapse you right back into the old reality. And this is where most seekers give up, not realizing that the problem is not their desire, it's their conditioning. So, before we can fully embody the status signal, we must confront the hidden saboteur. The mind that keeps broadcasting the past even when you want the future. It is this invisible force looping inside your brain and body that blocks the field more powerfully than any lack of technique. And to break free, we must learn how to interrupt those patterns at the root, which leads us directly into the next revelation. Why your own mind has become the greatest obstacle to your manifestation. If the quantum field is infinite, abundant, and immediate, why do so many people, despite practicing visualizations, affirmations, and rituals, remain trapped in the same cycles of frustration? The answer is uncomfortable but liberating. It's not the field that resists you. It's your own mind. The same neural machinery that kept your ancestors alive in dangerous jungles is now blocking you from stepping into a future that already exists. Your brain is a survival machine, not a manifestation engine. And, until you recondition it, it will keep collapsing realities that match the past instead of allowing the future to unfold. At the core of this sabotage is the reticular activating system, the filter, in your brain stem that decides what information reaches your conscious mind. It's designed to conserve energy by showing you only what confirms your beliefs. If you've lived in scarcity, it will highlight lack. If you've experienced rejection, it will emphasize abandonment. This isn't cruelty, it's efficiency. But the consequence is devastating for creators. Even when you try to broadcast a new signal, your brain scrambles to drag you back to the old one. You begin a visualization of abundance, but your mind interrupts with the bills you still have to pay. You start to feel the vibration of love, but memories of heartbreak flood in. Without realizing it, your mental filter has become a prison, locking you in a feedback loop of yesterday. This is why breaking free requires more than just thinking new thoughts. Your nervous system is addicted to the chemistry of your familiar emotions. If you've lived in stress, cortisol feels normal. If you've lived in anxiety, adrenaline feels safe. So when you try to embody gratitude, peace, or joy, your body resists. Not because you're weak, but because it craves the chemicals it knows. This is the hidden addiction of the mind. It drags you back into emotional states that match the past. Even when you consciously long for the future, your state collapses into incoherence, and the field loyal to your broadcast reflects the old reality once more. But here's the paradox. The very resistance you feel is proof that your signal is shifting. The discomfort means you're stepping beyond the familiar frequency. Most people mistake that friction for failure. So they stop. They tell themselves this isn't working and unconsciously re-anchor in the old state. But those who persist, who breathe through the resistance, who interrupt the pattern instead of obeying it, are the ones who create the break-in. The loop. Pattern interruption is not a gimmick. It is survival-level neurobiology, repurposed for evolution. Every time you shift your body out of its old chemistry and into coherence, you weaken the grip of the past. You train your nervous system to normalize the frequency of the future. Ancient traditions intuited this long before neuroscience explained it. They used chants, movement, rituals, and breath not merely as ceremonies, but as technologies of interruption. Each practice broke the rhythm of the mind, creating cracks where the new state could enter. Today, we can translate this into modern practices. Cold exposure, deep breathing, gratitude flooding, even changing your posture in the moment of fear. These are not small tricks. They are ways to hijack the nervous system and pull yourself into the state that signals the field differently. And when you repeat them consistently, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. The frequency of the future becomes your baseline. The prison of the mind dissolves. But make no mistake, this is not about silencing the mind. The goal is not to fight your thoughts, but to retrain the observer behind them. When you understand that your brain's obsession with survival is only one lens, you can choose another. You can choose to observe from the state of already having, already being. This choice repeated rewires the circuits. Neuroplasticity ensures that the brain adapts to whatever state you feed it most often. The field will always mirror your dominant broadcast. Change the state and the mirror must change. There is no negotiation. It is law. So the next time your mind whispers, it's not working, recognize it for what it is. The echo of the old program, the ghost of the past trying to pull you back. In that moment, you have a choice. Collapse the old reality again, or breathe, shift, and broadcast a new one. This is the real work of manifestation. Not chasing desires, but reconditioning the very machinery that collapses reality on your behalf. Once you master this, your desires no longer feel distant. They become the natural extension of your state. And here is where I want you to engage directly with this shift. Let's anchor it together right now. Type in the comments, I now collapse what I used to chase. Write it, declare it, and let your nervous system register the new state as truth. This isn't just a sentence. It's a signal. It's the beginning of training your mind to stop orbiting your dreams and start inhabiting them. Each word is a choice, each choice a broadcast, and each broadcast a collapse into a new timeline. Because once you claim the shift, you are no longer fighting your mind. You are retraining it. And when the mind begins to serve the state instead of sabotaging it, manifestation ceases to be a struggle. It becomes coherence. The field responds with the same immediacy it always has. Only now you finally see the reflection you've been waiting for. But there is still one more layer waiting to be revealed. If the mind blocks the field through survival loops, then how do we collapse time itself? How do we bypass the waiting game entirely and step into the reality where our desires are already alive? 2. Answer that, we must uncover the secret of the quantum leap, not as speed, but as synchronization. And that's where we turn next. When most people hear the phrase quantum leap, they imagine speed. They picture themselves catapulting from one circumstance to another overnight, as if time suddenly accelerates and delivers them to their dream. But this is not what a quantum leap really is. A leap in quantum terms is not about moving faster through time. It is about collapsing time altogether. It is about bypassing the illusion of waiting and entering the state where the future is already fact. The leap is not measured in distance. It is measured in coherence. In physics, electrons don't travel across a gap the way a car drives. Across a bridge, they disappear from one orbit and appear in another. The shift is discontinuous, nonlinear, instant. One state collapses, another emerges, and no journey in between is observed. This is the true metaphor of the quantum leap in manifestation. You don't crawl toward your desire step by step. You dissolve the old state and appear in the new one. The field doesn't need time to deliver. Time is only the scaffolding your mind uses to explain the collapse after it has already happened. This is why some people experience sudden breakthroughs. The relationship arrives when they stop looking. The opportunity appears when they stop waiting. The healing accelerates when they stop trying to force it. In those moments, they unknowingly slip into coherence. They stop observing their future as separate and begin to embody it as now. And the field, immediate and mercilessly precise, reflects the new broadcast with equal immediacy. From the outside, it looks like magic. From the inside, it feels like remembering because nothing new was created. The version of you that already had it always existed. You simply tuned in. But here's the paradox that traps most seekers. They try to leap while clinging to the timeline they want to leave. They say they believe, but they keep checking the evidence. They declare abundance, but they watch their bank account every hour. They visualize love, but they count the days alone. And in doing so, they anchor themselves in the very timeline they hope to escape. You cannot collapse into a new state while your attention is fused with the old one. Attention is currency, and wherever you spend it, that reality stabilizes. This is why letting go is not passive surrender. It is active reallocation of energy. It is choosing not to feed the state you wish to dissolve. So how do you actually collapse time? You stop trying to travel across it. You stop waiting for signs that it is working. You step into the identity that already lives it. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. This is where practice becomes powerful. Close your eyes and feel your future self breathing in your body, not imagining, embodying. Hear their voice as your voice. See the world through their eyes. Feel the gratitude that they already live in. And let that gratitude flood your nervous system until your body can no longer distinguish between memory and imagination. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain fires the same circuits when you vividly imagine as when you physically experience. To the nervous system, there is no difference, and the field collapses. In response to the state, not the evidence. This is why Joe Dispenza teaches that you must feel the future before it arrives, because the act of feeling it now is what makes it arrive. In fact, nothing is arriving. You are arriving. You are stepping into the frequency where it has always been. The leap is not movement. It is alignment. And alignment is timeless. When you master this, manifestation stops being about waiting for conditions to change. It becomes about changing the observer so completely that conditions must reflect the shift. Let's anchor this with a metaphor. Imagine reality as a vast radio spectrum with infinite stations playing simultaneously. Right now, you are tuned to a station broadcasting your current life circumstances. Your desire exists on another station playing its song. Right now, you do not pull that station toward you. You do not beg the universe to send the music across. You change the dial. You shift frequency. And the moment you tune in, the song was always there waiting. This is the quantum leap, not distance, not speed, synchronization. And yet, here is the incomplete puzzle that keeps seekers trapped. If the leap is so simple, why don't we stay in the new station once we tune in? Why do we flicker in and out, tasting coherence for a moment only to fall back into the old broadcast? The answer is that the old identity has momentum. The body, addicted to familiar chemistry, tries to drag you back. The mind trained to seek evidence sabotages the new frequency with doubt. The leap is instant, but stabilizing it requires practice. Just as a muscle grows with repetition, your capacity to inhabit the new state strengthens each time you return to it. This is why consistency matters. Not to force results, but to normalize the signal until it becomes who you are. So, the real quantum leap is not a single explosion of change. It is the moment you stop asking when and start living as now. Each return to the new state erodes the grip of the old timeline until one day, without warning, the leap holds. The future self you once visited becomes your default. The waiting dissolves. Time collapses in reality. Bends. Not because you attracted it, but because you stopped broadcasting separation. But there is still a final revelation to unfold. One that reframes the entire journey. Because if you were never meant to attract and never meant to wait, then what is manifestation really about? The answer is simpler and more profound than you think. It is not creation at all. It is remembrance. And that is where we turn next. Everything we've explored so far points to a single truth. You were never meant to chase, attract, or wait for your desires. That entire framework belongs to a world of separation where you are here and your dreams are somewhere else. But at the quantum level, there is no separation. Every possibility exists now vibrating in the field, waiting for you to collapse it. Through identity, manifestation then is not about pulling something new into existence. It is about remembering what is already yours. Think about it. You never attracted your reflection in a mirror. You simply stood in front of it. The reflection was inevitable because it was already encoded in who you are. Reality works the same way. When you embody the state of the wish fulfilled, the world has no choice but to reflect it. The field is impartial, mercilessly consistent. It will mirror what you are. And when you shift into coherence with your desired state, life bends to reveal the version of you that already exists. You don't create it, you recall it, you remember it into form. This is why mystics for centuries spoke of awakening, not acquiring. Buddha taught that enlightenment was not about becoming something new, but remembering your true nature. Neville Goddard insisted that creation is finished, and all you do is select the state you wish to occupy. Amit Gawami, the quantum physicist, described consciousness itself as the ground of all being, where every possibility already exists. Science and spirituality converge on the same truth. Manifestation is remembrance. You are collapsing into memory, not inventing reality from scratch. The pain most seekers feel comes from forgetting that they are already whole, forgetting that abundance, love, healing, and freedom are not external prizes but internal states awaiting recognition, forgetting that the universe does not test them, but mirrors them. And so they chase, attract, hope, and wait, never realizing that the act of searching is the act of postponing. The breakthrough begins the moment you stop asking when will it come and start declaring it is here because I am here. And this shift is not just personal. It is collective. When you remember your true state, you broadcast coherence into the field. That coherence touches others, awakening them to their own remembrance. This is how movements begin. Not through effort, but through resonance. One person living in the vibration of the already real ignites others to do the same. And together we collapse old timelines of struggle and open new ones of ease, abundance, and unity. This is not just your journey. It is ours. We are entangled, influencing one another at levels deeper than we realize. Every time you embody your future self, you give permission for others to remember theirs. So let this be your turning point. Stop rehearsing the old state. Stop living in the memory of lack. Stop waiting for evidence to prove your new reality. Become the evidence. Walk as the person who has already crossed the threshold. Feel gratitude not as a strategy, but as a natural expression of being. Speak from the frequency of done. Breathe as if you already live in the world you once dreamed of. Because the truth is you do. The only gap was your forgetting. Because in the end, the greatest shift is not in what you attract, but in what you recall. You were never meant to live as a seeker. You were meant to live as a creator. And when you stop searching and start remembering, you discover that the life you've been chasing has been standing in front of you all along. The reflection has always been there. The only question is, will you finally recognize yourself in it?